Oberheim OB Rising MPC Expansion 2. Of course, they don't call it out Oberheim, but we know that OB stands for Oberheim. This was based off of the OB8 samples, and this is an expansion for the MPC series of software and hardware, MPC 1, X, Live, and I don't know Force. I don't know. I can't tell you, but I do know for the main one, Studio, right? Because it runs the MPC software. And, basically it is a sampled version of the Oberheim. So I'm going to play just a little bit for you. You can hear that there's low end in it, and it sounds like that these key groups were meticulously sampled so that they will sound good. Although I will have to say there's a flaw. I'm going to call a flaw out for this preset because if you hit the note, I don't think it was that their intention to have that loop back. So easily something like that can slide through if you're trying to auto sample or multi sample a whole bunch of presets. I mean, it gets extremely monotonous. I'll tell you from personal experience with the expansion I made. I did a Morpheus expansion, and it got to be very monotonous very quick. But let's listen to this some more. That doesn't matter, right? Called the OBR2 VCO saw bass. Let's check out another. And this is a case for key groups. I was in a live stream and it's like, why key groups? The reason you have key groups is so you can work with a lot of complicated samples. Now, I don't know if this is like how the old school samples work, like the old S1000, S2000, even though that would be great if I could load some S1000 Akai old school stuff onto MPC software. But because you're dealing with multiple samples, key groups are set up so that you can have multiple samples across a keyboard path because a low sampled sound does not sound like a high sampled sound. And when you sample with key groups like that, you start to hear, like it was just one note sample and I move it up and down, which is a legitimate technique. But if I just move that one sample up and down, it's going to play faster at a higher note and it's going to play slower at a lower note. It may sound a little bit more shrill at a higher note when most analogs don't sound simply more shrill because all it is the actual analog oscillator generated at a higher frequency while keeping us all sonic harmonics intact or whatever makes a flavor is all intact. And then when you go down one sample going down the scale, it gets darker and you lose some of the richness in the sound. But when I hear this expansion and I hear lower notes, it doesn't sound darker to me. It sounds like they took time to sample the lower notes. And that again goes to my case of monotony. Let's see if I can turn on arpeggiator with it. And you hear that the polyphony is set to. But let's experiment with that. Let's see what happens if I change the polyphony on all the key groups. There's 21 key groups on this program alone, but what if I change that polyphony to? So now, this is a bass sound, so it's not really meant to be played polyphonically. But if you mess with your program, you can play it. Let's check out another sound. This is called Funky Keys. got kind of like that 1 in 5 thing going on with the oscillators, a good little filter envelope with it. Let's hear how long the notes last. So the interesting thing I hear when you play that, you do get a little bit of decay, but the sample does fade all the way out to nothing. Typically, what I would expect on a synthesizer like this is to hold the note as long as you want to. But again, when you go into that world in key groups or any sampler and you got to get that note to loop back and round robin on back, either forward and back or round and back, you got to make sure that that crossfade is good. And I'm looking at this program right here, 21 key groups on this. You know, ain't nobody got time for that. But if they really wanted to push it over the top, this note should be lasting forever. It would last forever on an analog synthesizer. It would last forever on like a JD08 or something like that. But this is still like having an analog Oberheim in your MPC on the go. Like literally, I could take this expansion, put it on my MPC Live, and totally play with it at a live gig and get that. Let's check out another sound right here that I loaded up. This is called That Key. You can sequence that. You can add reverb and effects to this. And some of the programs on here does have presets on it. And I like how it sounds. It sounds like an Oberheim. It sounds like an analog Oberheim on the go. So hear how that pad ends so fast? That's the only thing I don't like. That's the only thing I don't like. You have the stereo fidelity of that stereo mode in the Oberheim. The only reason I know a little bit of my way around the Oberheim because I messed with some really good plugins on that, which brings me to another point, is that this Oberheim synthesizer could end up being a native plugin in the Akai universe. If they do that, they already did a version of the ARP 2600, so what would stop them from doing other analog emulations? And the ARP 2600 plugin on this sounds pretty good. It would be cool, but I'd rather them do a Juno. But that gets into the whole red tape of intellectual properties and stuff like that. We all know the company who ain't worried about that, and they're making everybody synthesizers right now. This is a big sound. But what if I want that to stay? Now the cool thing is I can go into the key groups, right? The pad program edit, and let's say if I want to turn on the filter and then bring that down and. Open that back up. So you kind of get that filter. Or open all the way up. So it's a good sound. This is called Orchestral Staccato. Once again, a quick delay on it, but you're kind of expected to play it like this. So you don't have to worry about that note holding. But on a natural Oberheim, it would hold forever unless the envelope is set to decay. String chorus. That's an OBR string chorus. That's another key group. Like I said, that gives you the case of the key group because it's meticulously sampled. It's very detailed, and it's an easy package to move from one device to another. If you got the expansion and you install that expansion on your device, that takes expansions that can be installed on it, on the software, on the SD card in this format, or on your hard drive on your MPC Live, MPC Live 2, MPC X. Bringing that in. It doesn't even bother the CPU because it's playing samples. And one thing that all computers are very good at now in this day and age is playing audio files. And that's where you can get in a little bit to the theory of it, because it doesn't matter if you have audio files or not, because the consumer, if you're making music for the computer, is not going to know the difference between a VST plugin or a WAV file. I'm Dilio. You're watching the Dilio T2K YouTube channel. Come to my listening party June 29th, Wednesday, 2022. Hope to see you there. If you like this content, let me know. Peace out.